how are you doing today?
I'm fine, I'm okay.
And how have you been coping with COVID-19?
Well, not just lockdown, we're all locked inside.
Okay. Are you in the first room or the other room? Where have you been?
I'm in every other room, I'm in every room.
Fantastic. I'm very happy to have you on.
Thank you.
Wonderful. We've taken a bit of time, but don't worry. If it goes off, a lot of people are waiting. I can tell you that on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube. To our audience out there, thanks for your patience. I know your data is going. Please forgive us. Mr. Peter Gregory Obi was born on July 19, 1961. And he attended, I will just do an abridged version. He attended the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, from 1980 to 84. And he and his wife, Margaret, they have 2 children. And so we'll leave it at that. He's been former governor. He's gone through so much turbulence in politics, because that's what most of the people who are speaking to me want to hear about. Sir, how have you managed to stay afloat in the murky waters of politics?
Well, this one is tough. Well, I can say I just remain, I would say it's the blessing of the Almighty God that you just remain prayerful. The most important thing for me about public office or wherever you find yourself is to know that it is by His grace. It is God's blessing wherever you find yourself. And that will be your guiding principle whenever you serve, or whenever you do, wherever you find yourself, that I am not here on my own. I am here by His grace. Thereby, I cannot abuse the grace of God and do the right things. And I believe lesson to go through the difficulties of politics.
Anambra State is one of the most sophisticated states in Nigeria, but it's also one of the most turbulent in terms of politics. I was doing my research this afternoon, and I saw a governor who spent 2 days, 3 days, and then they are sad. What do you think? Is it too much education, or what exactly is the matter? Or do you have too many godfathers?
Well, it's all a combination of every factor, but I can tell you, for me, the 8 years, though at the starting it was turbulent, was very easy. I believe that if you focus on doing the right thing, you find out with time, you really don't have any form of disturbance. Because people will see that you're doing the right thing. But once you go into transactional politics, or in every other field, once you make it a transnational thing, there will be problems, because, which was my initial problem. When I started, I have people who live off the old order who says, well, listen, this man cannot change what we're doing. But as soon as people understand that, oh, this is what we're going to do, we're doing the right thing, it became a thing of the past.
Wow. Now I realize that one of your pet areas was education. Why? And I know a lot of times when you and I discuss, you have been traveling around the world looking at the state of education, especially in Africa.
Any society can do, the most important investment any society can do is education. Is the most important investment. And it has been shown that the highest return on investment is on education. the more you can invest in education, the better the people and the better your economy. Everything that you can talk about the Western world today is on education. Everything you can talk about Asian countries today is because of education. The only reason why a country like China, Vietnam, or Indonesia is doing better than Nigeria is doing is education, nothing else. I mean, you're a veteran in Ghana. The only reason why Ghana is better than Nigeria is education. The more you can invest in education, the better. And they are supposed to know a measure of human development. The most difficult thing is education. It's not about the education. These are the two most difficult things. If you can invest in these two, your economy will grow, your per capita will grow. Education. We are not invested in health. You can even see it with the circumstances we find ourselves today.
So, what would you say about our infrastructure deficit?
Well, like I said before, the greatest infrastructure you need is human infrastructure, which is education. If the people are educated and everything, you can look at it and say, well, listen, well, this is how we are going to go. But because we have not invested in educating our people, we have not invested in any formal, tell me, what do you think is wrong here and everything? And I say, well, listen, everybody knows the air we breathe is good. Our environment is good. The only thing that we are going through from the time you can say of Nigeria independence, that we have not had across the line committed leadership.
Today, if you were in President Buhari's shoes, what would you be doing?
That one is a tough one. No? I don't want to be in his shoes today because his shoes today is the issues of Corona. But let me be honest with you, the country needs to do a lot in terms of investment. Investment in different areas. The way I work is that I like comparing myself as an individual, as a corporate body when I was in board of institutions, subnationals in other countries, not just in this country, and saying this is what they are doing. The same thing is what I would be doing if I was president. If I am president today, mine is to look, where are we today? Which countries are our, say, grouping yesterday? Where are they? Why are they not doing and then start doing it? Once you can, as individual, as a corporate body, as a country, or as a state, you can compare yourself, especially with your peers that are doing well, you will get better. What has been happening in Nigeria as a country and our various states yesterday? Where are we today? Where are we going? It's like having a clear vision or your destination and say, I'm moving from this point to this point. In 2000, when we started this democratic experiment was 2000. In 2000, Ghana GDP is $5 billion. $5 billion. Their per capita then was $258 And their reserve, their foreign exchange reserve then was $250 million. Have moved to $32 billion. Their per capita have moved to $1,325, and their reserve was $4.9 billion. Then you could see a movement. By the year 2018-2019, their GDP have gone to $65 billion. Their per capita have moved to $2,200, and their reserve is now $7.1 billion. Compared to where we are, in the same 2000, then our GDP was $70 billion, and our per capita was Ghana as at then, and our reserve was $31 billion. So we had, you could see our reserve was almost, call it 5 times, or our GDP moved to $370 billion, and our per capita was $2,325, and our reserve was about 48. By 2018-2019, our GDP became $395 billion. Our per capita was now $1,950. We were double of Ghana in 2008. In year 2000, now Ghana have passed us. And our reserve now is $34 billion. So our reserve have only moved from 31 billion to 34. Ghana have moved from 250 to 7 billion, almost 40 times, and so was their GDP. So I ask myself, what is happening? Then I can go on and go on, even in budget. If you look at today, our budget this year, just this year, our budget, actual budget this year is about $28 billion. Over 200 million people is about $140 per head. Ghana is $13.something billion, almost $150 per head. How can Ghana, the second biggest economy in West Africa, with a GDP that is just about 1/7 of us, be budgeting $450 per head, and we're budgeting? So these are things I'll be looking at.
What people say is because their population is much lower.
To Indonesia, where it is classically the same thing. You know, in Indonesia, these are people we started with. I can even go to China. You know, I can even go to China. In year 2000, the GDP of China year 2000 is about 1.1 trillion. And by then, their per capita was about, China GDP is almost 12 trillion with a per capita of about 10,000. So you could see they moved through in the same 2000, China reserve is $170 billion. Today, China GDP is about 12, their per capita is about 10, their reserve is 3 trillion. So they have done about 18 times their reserve from year 2000 to now. We had $31 billion in year 2000, by 5 times. So, but what did Ghana do that we didn't do? They had a consistent policy that everybody can see and is measurable, and they measure it year by year. It has nothing to do with population. Their population is 1,350,000,000. You must be able to say, this is where we are starting everybody. What has happened? It has to do with the president. When I talk about issue, it is not just the presidency. The leadership in Nigeria, across the line, from the councillor in my village to everybody, needs to be somebody that understands where this vehicle is going. What has happened that when we have good drivers, they are carrying passengers that have since passed their destination. When we have bad driver, the passengers themselves don't know. It's a confusion.
To get it right, we all analyze the problem of Nigeria forever. And it's so frustrating every time we talk. It's clearly on leadership. Our leadership selection process is poor. Our leadership selection process is poor, and the citizens have become insanely complacent. They have become insanely complacent. Give us all the credibility. We said, no, let's share it. Then that money was shared. As we speak today, nobody can find the impact of that money anywhere. Anywhere. And I said without any, nobody can find the impact anywhere. And all of us who were part of the sharing are still in charge. In every other country, we would have apologized. By now, the collective of governors would have come out and apologized to the country and possibly leave office. Or go to jail. And saying that we know what we are doing. Then imagine what would have happened to this country if we had $15 billion sitting today in our sovereign wealth fund. Is it not the $1 billion she managed to save that we are not going to take $150 million from to share to the states? Imagine if we have 15. Are we going to be running to IMF now looking for 3.something billion? No, because that money would have been about 18 billion now. Would have taken 3 and still be feeling like every other country. But all the characters that all of us who are involved in the sharing and see people who are in charge today, if you go to everywhere, the way you select leadership is, what did you do yesterday that you're asking us to vote for you again? So in China, you start from the local level, state level, national level. Even in America. Now, you see, you said the problem is leadership problem. So how do we now get the right set of? You contested, I contested in 2011. I thought the solution was organize workers into a workers' party, like you are talking about China, which is what is happening. But our workers are not ready. People are still waiting on the rich men to fund, and when they fund, they must come for their dividends. That's what is happening.
That's exactly what I'm telling you, that the leadership recruitment process is poor. And that must change. The people must understand.
So what is changing?
What must change is that the people must understand that the only way they can get good leadership is that they are part of the process. You cannot continue to support people who don't have the capacity and think it will change. Look at what is happening at various components of our state. Local government chairman, you read coronavirus thing. You saw mayors talking, saying they have this in their county. They have this in their county. Have you heard any local government chairman say anything here? You saw states that can afford to spend even one ventilator. Yes. Ventilator, and they're celebrating the ventilator.
Sir, my question still is, you contested, I contested, so many good people contested, Fela Durotoye, Donald Duke. Donald Duke performed well in Cross River. You did well in Anambra. So how come none of the good performers could end up at the top?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that all of us need to continue to engage. All of us need to critical mass. We need good leaders at the world level, at local government level, at state level, at national level. If all the local governments are functional and all the states are doing well, I can tell you the national one will be forced to do well. They have no, and it is not just people who are there today. It is that the system from the year 2000. Yes, you might say that, like you mentioned a few names now, there might be 10%, 5%, 10%. It will not work with that. You need the critical mass. That's like you go to school. Then if you have 70%, they give you an A. Even if you have 75, it's still an A. There's nothing. They know there's some percentage that is missing. But so the reason why I generalize is that you need everybody to believe that this is what we're going, so that you spend quality time. You need all the good names, whether it's Fela, whether it's anybody. There's so many people, there's a few people here and there that have done well, but that's not how a society is changed. A society is changed by a critical mass of people who believe in doing good.
Then, sir, what it means is that we're going to wait to be able to form enough movement that can take on the established system. And I've virtually given up on that. The emergence of good people in Nigeria is going to be very tough if you look at the configuration that we have right now.
Well,
No, just a minute, sir. Three things. Okay. One, ethnicity takes priority over everything in Nigeria. Next is religion. Then between them, cash. So those, I don't see you as the president of Nigeria. I don't see Moghalu. It is almost impossible. I don't see it happening.
Let me tell you my own take in this. One is that the only reason why you're talking about ethnicity and everything, and all those things that happen, is that we have something we are sharing. That thing we are sharing does not have a long life. We are living off an asset that we might not have, that will not be worth anything very soon. There was coal and people fought about coal. Now there's oil and people are fighting about it. Sooner or later, that cash will not be there to be shared. So the sharers of wealth will now have to give way for those who are going to make or build the wealth to be shared every month for anything to be shared. You know that. You know, I don't know, you might know what is happening in Ghana. I don't know very well, but in most countries, in China, anything, there's nothing being shared. And so you have to be creative. So we're not getting to where we have smart governance, creative governance, and that means that we have to look for people who have something to offer. But as long as we continue to have things to share and everything, we will continue to have a situation where it's. But remember what I told you about my own position about issue of. I want to see where a man who is speaking good English, who knows how to maneuver things. I want to see his performance yesterday. I want to know where that person has performed, what is done, and we can sit down and evaluate it and say, this man, when he passed through here, he has been able to do this, do this, do this. Then you run an organization. So I can say, this company, those who are working in it, at least he has managed them very well. What you see in Nigeria is that a man without a daytime job comes from nowhere, like you said, because there's a lot of cash, or because he can speak good grammar, manipulate people without anything, and people are following him. No. We need people to have a lot of my friends who came and said to me, they are contesting even president, and I said to them, why don't you go to your state and become a governor at that level so I can assess you? I want to meet people who you have done business with and say, you did a business with Dele, what did he do? What was his conduct? What was his behavior and everything? Then we cannot say, okay, we can deal with this person. Look at what he did in this local government. Look at what he did in this state. Then we have the position at national level. That's like I told you that those who were yesterday, and by the time you know it, because like you said, they have contacts. I don't have. You might have, because I'm sure you're very connected. By the time you know it, you, because you don't have contact, will even become a victim. They can even say one thing and get you to be put in cell or anything because you're making too much noise. Here with 10, 20, 30 countries with you, and you feel sad about yourself. And what those countries are doing are not rocket science. They're easy things anybody can do without feeling it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I operate across Africa. Liberia went through war. A few years down the line, I went back to Liberia, where there was no electricity anywhere during the war. And things had changed. They had electricity, they had good roads. It may not be perfect yet, but the scars of war are disappearing. In Ghana, within 3 years in Ghana, they had what they made sure that we were zoned. We had different zones, zone A, zone B. So you will have light from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., maybe in your house. And then they take it the following day. Then in your office, you have 6 a.m. So it was well rationed in a way that we could plan. So you know when light will go off and when it will come back. But the interesting thing is that within 2 to 3 years, John Mahama was able to fix. He told them plainly. He said, you will have to pay for it, but I will supply it. And he did. The brilliant man, fantastic man, I had to go to his office one day and said, sir, people are spoiling your name. And I already know the answer. So why are you not talking? Because when you were in Lagos, you had the executive power. So Fashola had executive power in Lagos, but in Abuja, it's a different thing. So how do you now deal with the issues of bureaucracy?
Well, like I said before, I agree with you what you said. He had executive power and now you don't have it. But I still believe that if you want to deal with that matter, you need to speak out. You need to say this is wrong. We cannot continue that way where people meet a situation that, none of us is born with any office. I don't need to be president of Nigeria to be able to speak out. I don't need to be anything. I've not had any office in the past 7 years since I left governor. I've not been anywhere. But I speak out as I go with my experience and still tell people, for example, there's no way you can say you have security when you have not provided for the people. It's not happening like that anymore. Okay, let me give you an example why you have a sense of, if you come into Ghana, if you come in, they will take you to a hotel where you stay 14 days. Am I right? Because you know Ghana very well. You know Ghana very over the world. Who wants to come back to Ghana? They bring them back to Ghana and they put them in a hotel for 14 days. Today, I read in one of the news in Nigeria where they said the Nigerians that want to come back, that they are planning a place to keep them first, that the place they got, they don't have enough bed. Of course, there's too many hotels in Lagos that are empty now. Go to and say to Sheraton, not 500 and something rooms a night. That is 2 fights. Maybe one from the UK, one from the US. They say they are looking for a place, they don't have enough bed. Are they looking for the secondary school dormitory to keep people you are going to bring from London? It doesn't make sense. There's so many things we're not getting right. And we need to get it right in order to at least trying to maintain the lockdown for us not to have the facility to fight.
Wow. Well, there is no way we can discuss Nigeria and we don't talk about people who are agitating. Some people are not as patient as you are because you are speaking, but it doesn't seem anyone is listening. I started the struggle in 1978 as a pioneer Gambite at the University of Ife. 1978, that was the year of the Ali Must Go. Since then till now, nothing has happened. So, so there are people who are saying, no, what we need is restructuring. A lot of people are sending messages that what we need is to restructure Nigeria. So what exactly do we need to restructure? Because if you talk to 3-4 different people, they give you different versions.
Well, for me, what we need to restructure, we need to have true federalism. We need to have true federalism. When people talk about restructure, everybody, even those who are saying no to it, you help them more. It will help us a lot because that will stop what you said before, issue of ethnicity, issue of religion, issue of all sorts of things. Because you just have to focus on your own and see it move. If we want the place to work federalism, so people can focus on what they're doing. So if with that, you will see people question their leaders more. People will be more involved. As long as we continue this idea of common pulse, common this and everything, it will work. It never worked anywhere. and their own, with strong leaders pursuing their own economic and developmental agenda without listening. And it's ending all over the place. In the UK, in Ghana, where you go, you know what is happening there. So it's critical. But all the agitations you see, most of the agitations you see, Dele, is due to leadership failure. Once you have leadership failure, you have lots of agitation and insecurity. Brazil, Mexico, all the South American countries, and then Asian countries. Once you have a leadership failure, you have agitation, you have criminality, you have lots of things. But once you have true and good leaders, you ready. It's just that when people talk about corruption, I always tell them one thing. If the leader, whether it's local councillor, local government chairman or governor, there's no country, there's no state, there's no place that is corruption free or crime free. But if the leader is not the one stealing, you reduce it by 70% because they are going to bring the documents for him to sign. So they will question it. I was a governor for 8 years. You dare not give me the price of it, to give me the right price. When we wanted to buy computers for school, we said, I want to computer in every secondary school. So what we did is that we went to the stand and I called him. I said, Mr. Lestan, we want to buy HP computers for our schools. Lestan told me, I don't deal with states because they don't pay, and I don't want to do this. And I said, let me tell you, sir, there's somebody have given me a quote of 140,000 per computer, which is the desktop and the printer. I want to buy about 30,000, which is he said, no, where are you going to get money to pay for 30,000? I said, I don't want to pay for each one more than 90,000 naira. He told me at that price, it will be difficult. I have to request from HP office in South Africa, and beg whether they will give us at that price. But at that price, you have to pay upfront because we not want to. I said, you stand, we're going to pay you within 1 week. He's alive, we can tell him. Within 1 week, we paid him. And that was it. He delivered till today. Nobody has bought 30,000 computer and they go. We went to Innocent. When Innocent was starting, we went to Innocent. Innocent was not producing bus. When I went to him, every of our secondary school, both private and public, said they want bus. We checked all the secondary school, they were about 500. So what I said is that what we did with issue of HP, we did with Innocent Motors. When we wanted to buy vehicles for our schools, for our schools, for the traditional rulers and everything, we went to Innocent and we paid him direct. So all those things, if you want to, again, I keep saying, if you want to contain the corruption, we cannot eliminate it direct or completely, but we can reduce it drastically because the level where it is unacceptable. If people were taking the usual 5% or 10%, maybe you're spent and nobody can see anything, it's unacceptable.
Wow. Okay, now there's a question I love to ask Nigerian politicians, and it's about our American system, what we practice here, the system of democracy. Don't you think in the foreseeable future we may need a constitutional change or something?
Well, quite frankly, every form of democracy is expensive. It depends on how you want to practice it. It depends on how you want to practice it. You know, if you want to practice it where it will be cheap, it will be cheap. It's us that made it expensive. You know, my son, the cost of governance in Nigeria is unacceptable. The waste is too much. It doesn't necessarily need to be whether it is presidential or it needs to be parliamentarian. Whichever way we practice here, the waste is unacceptable until Biden became vice president of America. He lived in Connecticut and was going to Washington every day. He goes by train. Andrew Cuomo goes by train to his office in New York. The same thing, you have a lot of friends in the UK. All the parliamentarians go by train. I remember living in the UK when Tony Blair was Prime Minister. The wife had to be charged for not buying train ticket because he saw the train running late and he had to jump into the train before. So I can go on and on. We made it expensive unnecessarily.
Because when you become governor or you become president, then you must do Thanksgiving. Because in Ghana, I was a neighbor of President.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. This is the only place in the world where you vote Mr. Peter Obi in. Everybody know that Peter Obi as a person does not own a house in his village. People know Peter Obi does not own a one big house in Ikoyi. He doesn't have enough money to buy it. All of a sudden, within 6 months of being governor, he builds a mansion that anybody can believe, and then invite the bishop to come and bless it, invite the whole world with champagne to come and drink and say he's doing housewarming, he's moving to the house. The bishop will come there and be seeing vision and telling him that the way he sees him, he will no longer end in governor, he must be president. Because of what he saw here, the people will be there drinking and singing instead of calling police because they know where he got the money from. Yeah, you will even see people in your village telling you you didn't do well because when this man was there, look at what he did for his wife, look at what he did for his children, look at what he did for this. Let me give you an example. There's nothing called office of first lady in any state in America. There's nothing called that. It doesn't exist. Not even national one. President Obama's wife is the wife of the president. Just like President Trump's wife is the wife of the president. There's no office in America called Office of First Lady. Talk less of the state level. Here, when I became governor, there was a clear budget and staffs and everything for Office of First Lady until I told them that we don't need this additional confusion in Anambra State. I love my wife, we are very close, but it has to be in the evening. If he wants to help me, he can go to the village and see what the old women are going through, organize the women in groups where they can form women groups. But I don't want additional convoy with somebody running around, creating additional confusion in the whole place. So the cost is us that impose the cost, and it is unacceptable.
Okay. Everybody complains about insecurity in Nigeria. What's your attitude to community policing now in the in Western Nigeria. There is Amotekun. So what would you say is the way forward? There is so much.
If you want to fight insecurity, the first thing you need to do is to provide job. That's the number one thing to fight insecurity. If you educate people and they're gainfully employed, you reduce insecurity. That is why they have a welfare system in the Western world. That is why today we have pandemic, that you see governments in the Western world, whether it's USA, Japan, pay people cash, is they don't want breakdown of law and order. That's why India is paying people money. As long as people don't know, if you don't know where the next meal will come from, you're likely to be a criminal. So it is a bad leadership because they've not provided for the poor people in the system. That's number one. Number two is that all these things we are agitating about community policing and this. Then you went to school in Ife. In Ife, when you went there, there's a university police, university security system. I was in Nsukka. We had a university security which was headed by, I think it was an ex-commissioner or deputy commissioner of police. So there's nothing wrong in people having even street security. There's nothing wrong in that. As governor, I formed vigilante in everything for them to secure their communities. When I hear people talk about community policing now, I said, we were present in the Anambra State. If you go to Anambra State, everybody will tell them, I bought vehicles for every community, every market, all major churches. I bought vehicles for them. All major churches, all major markets in Anambra State, all communities. I gave them a pick-up for security. I said, you must form your own security. People talk about security in Anambra today. I told them that we laid the foundation by providing community policing, which then went on the way it is. Just like the same thing I say, there's nothing wrong in that.
You are so stingy. You don't like spending money. What's the problem?
I don't know about that. They spend a lot of money. I can tell you. You know, let me tell you what happens in Nigeria. People think money, there's a purpose for money. Money is not meant for parties and for celebration. Every month, before I became governor until date, I visit at least 2 secondary schools. I've been to secondary schools in Kogi, in Sokoto, in Nasarawa. I can go on and on. Everywhere. Ebony, secondary school in Abia, in Imo secondary school I visited that I spent less than 1 million naira. If you want the copy of the list. This year alone, I have been to 7 secondary schools and I bought each a dozen computer and a generator to power the computer. Money has a purpose. People think money here is to use to be wear shoe. The purpose of shoe is to protect the leg from being hot or from any danger. So it doesn't matter whether you wear one of 1 million naira or one of 10,000 naira. They're serving the same purpose. It is easy for me to use my money to buy computer for people in school, for people who need it. Then, let me tell you one experience I had in Nigeria. It was raining and there was flooding all over the place. And some, because the village was putting his water on the water because my this is what the purpose was meant for. So for me, it doesn't matter whether you are inside a Rolls Royce or you are inside a Camry, but let's use money for what it is meant for. I go to university. I can show you universities where I have been involved and given a lot of money. The only difference is that I don't give the money I can be given doctorate degree. Anything I want a degree, I go to university and read for it. I don't want the one. Who are not using local government money to buy rice and put their fruit on it as if they this pandemic, yes, everybody must come out and support what is happening, but please don't go and call out people in their difficult time and be using your picture on me or put your picture on. No. But don't go and start. Do you know the cost of putting your picture on a bag of rice is more expensive? Why don't you convert it to buy tomato for the people to eat?
Wow.
So these are things that so thinking is relative. You know, money must be used properly. I go to hospitals to be able to pay people's hospital bill. That's what money is meant for. Money is not meant for you to go and use and be drinking champagne. You have lived abroad. Champagne is meant for celebration. It's not meant for just, you know, it is what are we celebrating here? Eating in our villages. We're celebrating that we don't have a road. We're celebrating we don't have train. So what are we drinking? Let's use more viciously. And above all, let all of us know we have no other country except this one. And come collectively together and do this. What you see is not rocket science. What you see in other countries are not rocket science. It can be done here. If only we can sacrifice the
Wow. Wow. Well, Your Excellency, the network seems bad, but I think we've taken so much of your time today. I must thank you so much. I must thank our viewers. Iconic actor Richard Mofe-Damijo. Yes, it promises to be exciting. So every day can be about politics. So tomorrow we'll talk a bit about lifestyle, about entertainment. And of course, we have Mr. Richard Mofe-Damijo. And my dear brother, thank you. So I know the trouble you went through to be on this program tonight. Some people are asking me if I can get President Buhari online. I will reach out, and if any members of Aso Rock is watching, I will be contacted to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar this morning. I'm hoping, he knows a lot about technology. So if you can put in a word for me, so I'm putting you on the spot that you should please come online. A lot of people would like to hear from him.
You're a big man. I'm sure you'll get all the people you want to get. You know the more than I know them.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And please thank Madam for me, because I can see that she's been our special assistant on Instagram.